countdown.
Yeah, you're all set now, Malia.
Okay, great. Okay, we have enough for quorum, so I can see that. So I am going to call to order the meeting of, what is today? April 5th. Oh, do we need to record? I do not know the answer to that question.
We don't, but I'll hit record anyways as a backup.
Okay, good plan. Do we have anyone willing to take minutes? All right, thanks, Linda. And it was called to order at 7:05. All right. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from March 24th. Has everyone had a chance to look them over? Okay. Do we have that cannot talk today? I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes of March 24th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will move to a roll call vote. I'm just going to go in order on my screen, so I'm sorry if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. Linda Woodland.
Woodland, yes.
Krista Bennett.
Bennett, yes.
Britt.
Beardmore, yes.
Linda Longbleal.
Longbleal, yes.
Okay, Laura.
Mom, yes.
And I vote yes. Gustafson, yes. Okay, so the minutes are approved. Okay, so we have Attorney McElvoy here with us for the next item on the agenda. And that would be the policy review, specifically the harassment policy and revision, which is how we started this discussion. But I have also seen the memo that Attorney McElvoy sent us, which had a lot of other things in it. So I'm trying to think of the best approach to this. Would it make sense? First, did everyone have a chance to read the memo? And would it make sense to have Attorney McElvoy kind of give us a summary of his thoughts first, perhaps, and then we can go from there?
Yes.
Okay.
All righty. You ready for me to go here?
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you all about these important policy issues. This was all, I think, back when I began communicating with the district in August about this, what prompted our recommendations for some policy changes were primarily the enactment of the new Title IX sexual harassment regulations by the U.S. Department of Education. There's now an entire set of very detailed prescriptive regulations that can be found in, it's actually at 34 CFR Part 106. And these govern how we respond to claims of reports of sexual harassment, either of teachers, by teachers, of students, or by students. We are obligated under federal law to comply with these regulations. If we fail to comply with these regulations, the district and district personnel are at risk of a civil action for monetary damages under Section 1983. The regulations just do not permit any kind of the implementation of any other procedures but for those required under the federal, these new federal regulations. What the federal regulations require is that for claims of sexual harassment that come within the scope of Title IX, and there is a revised definition of what constitutes sexual harassment under Title IX, we are required to have a district-wide grievance procedure in place that complies with the requirements of the regulations. For all other types of harassment, harassment on the basis of race, national origin, disability, discrimination on the basis of gender as opposed to sexual harassment, we are required to also have a district-wide grievance procedure for addressing those types of complaints as well. So what our recommendation is here is to replace essentially your existing harassment policies with a single kind of more general harassment policy, which doesn't set forth the specific due process procedures. And then the district would adopt administratively a set of grievance procedures for both non-Title IX sexual harassment and for Title IX sexual harassment, because again, the procedures are really different. I will just kind of give you a little bit of background. Up until August of 2020, when these regulations went into effect, when we were responding to claims of sexual harassment, we essentially could do it. It didn't really, our responsibilities didn't really differ than if we were responding to a claim of discrimination on the basis of national origin or harassment on the basis of disability. We could assign a single investigator, conduct an investigation, provide notice of outcome, take necessary steps to restore a non-hostile environment for the person who's identified as having been targeted with that harassment. Under Title IX, however, you're not allowed to do that. You cannot have a single investigator model. You have to have a multi-person Title IX team within the district. There has to be a district-wide Title IX coordinator who's responsible for conducting the initial outreach upon the receipt of a report of sexual harassment. That coordinator can then either conduct an investigation themselves or delegate authority to another individual. Once that investigation is done, we're required to send the evidence package to the complainant and to the accused, give them 10 days to respond. Then we send a final evidence package to the decision maker, who is usually the principal. The principal then has to give them 10 additional days to review the evidence and to ask directed questions of one another, regardless of age. This can apply to a first grade sexual harassment issue. And then once that process is completed, the decision maker then simply makes a decision as to whether harassment occurred. If we were to, address sexual harassment through a single investigator model or require them to go through an informal process, we would be violating the federal regulations and would be subject to a claim of either retaliation by the student accused of engaging in the harassment, or of deliberate indifference by the student who is complaining of the harassment or the staff member. So what I've given you all, and I was a little unclear as to whether it's in front of you, where it kind of fell in the documents that were previously provided, but a draft general non-discrimination harassment policy entitled policy, we called it policy AC. It's somewhat of a revision of the MASC sample policies. And what this does is it creates makes a general non-discrimination statement, and then provides that the superintendent will develop and implement grievance procedures for claims of discrimination or harassment on the basis of membership in a protected class, as well as a separate grievance procedure for allegations of sexual harassment within the scope of Title IX. So that's kind of where this is all coming from. And I can tell you all that in reviewing some of your existing policies, I'm sure it's not lost on you all, but some of them are pretty old, 20, 22 years old. They don't necessarily contain the right definitions of particularly in the sexual harassment, the right definitions of sexual harassment. The existing procedures in the policies don't square with the new Title IX requirements, and things like that. So what we would be recommending is just, replacing those policies with a single non-discrimination harassment policy that references grievance procedures to be implemented by the superintendent across the district. And why having the grievance procedures is a plus as opposed to detailing these procedures in a committee policy is it provides you guys with some flexibility to be able to modify the procedures as changes are made to the regulations, or to modify the procedures if you all find that there's kind of a more efficient way to perform a certain function after we've been doing this for a couple of years. It allows you without having to go through an entire committee approval process.
I do think that's the direction we've generally been trying to move
Yeah.
with our policies, and at least this subcommittee, one of the reasons we started looking closely at some of our policies, over a year ago, actually, it's taken some time to get through this one.
Yeah.
And even, the laws have changed. It sounds like some of the language has changed even since, we started this process. So, because there's one that you pointed out that we just approved last year and, so. or
Which one
last
was
fall.
that? I'm sorry.
That was a disability policy, which is
Oh.
we'll get to, but
Okay, the pupil services one.
so I do think we're moving in that general direction to put less procedure in our policies,
Yep.
as long as we're complying with the law. I have to admit, I saw the memo, but I did not see the draft policy, so I need to go back and find the link for that.
So
Brendan,
that
was
is
that
in the
in the
chat. It's in the
Okay.
chat. Yep.
Thank
And
you.
I see people are getting on there.
Okay,
see
thank
that.
you. I'm sure I've seen it at some point. It just was not it was not handy. Okay, hold on a second. All right. Oh, yeah, hold on. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. Okay. So now I've lost you all again. I'm sorry. Okay. So there we are. Sorry for that delay. I see a hand, so I was going to ask if there was discussion. So Laura, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for this information. I find it extremely helpful to guide our work moving forward. As I understand it, I just want to make sure that I understand correctly that based on the changes that have occurred with the Title IX regulations as of August 2020, your recommendation is that we repeal or eliminate the sexual harassment policy 6434, the promoting civil rights and prohibiting harassment, etc., 6437, sexual harassment 5235, and then maintain the current policies that we already have in place as of 2019 and 2021. That would be non-discrimination 6631A, and then non-discrimination on the basis of disability 6437.1. And then you're also advocating that we adopt AC policy, the draft recommendation of the non-discrimination and harassment. Is that my understanding?
Absolutely. So basically what you'd be doing is replacing 6437A, 6434A, 5235A, and I think that was it, with this draft policy AC, which, obviously you can call, 6434 and 6437 combined, because it's equally applicable to both personnel and students. The Title IX regulations don't distinguish between personnel and students. They apply equally. The one, I guess, and you absolutely interpreted what I said in the memo completely correctly, but I will tell you, because I am kind of a picky about these types of things. In the first review we did of the non-discrimination on the basis of disability policy, 6437.1, that looked, it's generally looked okay. But then when I kind of looked at it more closely in preparation for my appearance here tonight, I actually had a number of changes I would make to that as well, simply because there's some language in there. There's a couple issues in there, but one is the policy does make a reference to Section 504, but not consistently. And it should, wherever it says Title II of the ADA, it should also say and/or Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, because that applies to us. We are a recipient of federal funds through the Department of Ed. And the definition of a qualified individual with a disability as set forth in this policy is not exactly accurate.
Okay.
That a qualified individual with a disability is an individual with a mental or physical impairment that substantially limits a major life activity. And it is not limited as far as their eligibility and our potential responsibilities solely to architecture, communication, or transportation barriers. particularly when you're talking about students under Section 504. The reasonable modification standard does not apply to eligible students under Section 504. There's a higher standard for students than for employees under 504. Under Section 504, when we find a student to be a qualified individual with a disability as defined under 504, we're required to provide whatever accommodations or services are necessary to enable the student to benefit to the same extent as his non-disabled peers from the programs and services available within the district. And we cannot say that, we don't consider that, we put an outright limitation on it on the basis of reasonableness like we could with an employee, because there's an individual free appropriate public education entitlement under Section 504. So I did.
Okay, so that's a lot of information for me to digest all at once.
Relatively quickly a red line version of that policy.
Yes.
And I'd be happy to look at it again and spend a little more time
Yeah.
on it, but
Okay.
it's not, the changes are not hugely substantial. They're just
Okay.
kind of geared towards covering you if you were to get a complaint down the road with the U.S. Department of Ed's Office for Civil Rights or something like that. They would look at this policy and say, okay, we need Section 504 references. The definition's not right. Stuff like that.
Okay.
Brendan,
So,
did everyone get
so-
a copy of the red line policy? I know I got a copy, but it came right before the meeting.
Yeah, I
so-
just did. I apologize.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
that's
I
okay.
will. I'll get that out to people now in the chat.
So,
Okay,
so
thank you.
just to clarify those updates that you just, that we're going to get on the non-discrimination on the basis of disability, those edits are not based on a change per se in the law, but just a clarification of some of the language so that we are more clear and better able to articulate and align with the law. Is that correct?
Exactly
Okay.
right. Yep.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, there have not
Okay.
been any ADA the biggest ADA change you guys already have in here, which was the Title II effective communications provisions, which you guys kind of addressed in this policy already. The one thing I will just mention to you about the policy, I guess substance wise and going through and making the changes, technically under the US DOE requirements, the final decision as to whether the accommodation that will be provided, particularly when it comes to a qualified individual's request for communication related accommodations, is made by the district's ADA coordinator, not the school committee.
Okay. I will look at that.
And the ADA coordinator is required to send a written notice. This is something we do this, just so you all know, when we do trainings for staff and stuff, this is Title II of the ADA comes up quite a bit, because when you're in an IEP team meeting and a parent requests, something like an FM system, if the district says no, we still have competing obligations under Title II of the ADA, and that means that decision has to be advanced to the district-wide ADA coordinator, who then has to issue a letter saying why we're doing what they're requesting. So that all the laws kind of intersect on the effective communication thing, and it gets a little complicated.
Okay. I see Linda Longbelial's hand up, and I know that you worked on this policy quite a bit. So go ahead.
Well, I read it carefully. And I can't say that I made changes to it, really. It's based on an MASC policy, which perhaps needs some refinement as well.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you're pointing these things out. That's good. And I was curious as to whether the policy you're proposing is based on an MASC policy, or whether it's been used in other districts, et cetera.
It is based on an MASC policy that, is I do not mean to, say anything negative about the MASC, but, quite, this is all we do in our office. We represent about 75 districts.
Uh-huh.
I have never seen an MASC policy that didn't need to be changed.
Okay.
It's usually not like a wholesale change, but it's a tweaking, when
Uh-huh.
when they came out with their MASC discipline policies after they implemented the new discipline regulations, what the MASC policy has drafted basically created all these obligations that actually didn't exist under the law. So we ended up revising that as well. So the policy AC I gave you is kind of a streamlined, I would tell you, I think it's better version of what the MASC wrote.
Okay.
But and I
Okay.
will also tell you, it is in use by numerous districts. Basically, almost every district we represent is implementing these policies and procedures. There are different versions of it. There's a more warm and fuzzy version of it that kind of we based off of what some districts had for existing procedures, where it was a little less kind of legalistic and a little more, this is what we're concerned about. This is what we want to make sure we do in the district. Frankly, it doesn't come across very clearly though, and it doesn't really, befit a school committee, frankly, the way.
Maybe you should take whoever the lawyers are for the MASC out to lunch and, gently tell them that.
They'll take me off the policy distribution list if I do that.
Yeah. Did I see Linda Woodland had her hand up at some point?
I did. I didn't want to, since we went down a different path than I was intending, so I wanted to just be sure that that was covered before I jumped in. But I just had a question about the grievance procedures part, because I had only followed some of the changes over the past few years in the news a little bit about kind of the tenor of the changes to Title IX. And so what I was curious about is if the required grievance procedures, if it still seems, if it seems to have kind of chipped away at Target's protections in any way, or
They absolutely have. And I will tell you that I am no fan of these current requirements. But I will just I can give you a little background. Basically, what these regulations were changed, actually proposed in, I think, 2016. They went through this public hearing process. The intent of these regulations was to provide greater protections to individuals accused of sexual harassment at the expense of students or individuals reporting sexual harassment. That there was a sense, which frankly, having practiced in this area, I was inaccurate, but a sense that essentially the Title IX sexual harassment investigation procedures that the US DOE had come up with and basically guided school districts to follow through the issuance of these Dear Colleague letters over a 10-year period provided too many protections to victims at the expense of the rights of targets. And, there were some bad stories out there. There was a story about a football player at a Division I college who was accused of sexual harassment. He got found. They did an investigation. They found no basis to support the allegation against him. He graduated. He was drafted by the NFL. When he showed up for his first practice, they pulled him aside and said, we're cutting you. And they asked why. He asked why. He said, because we just got word from your college that you were found guilty of sexual harassment. And, that's just not something we're going to have on our team. And the player said, well, wait a minute. No, I was found not guilty. And they said, well, we have a letter here saying that on appeal, following an appeal hearing, you were found guilty. And what it turned out was that the college did an entire appeal hearing and an entire appellate investigation and never told the accused that they were doing it or let him have any input into the process, which was not completely inconsistent with the Dear Colleague guidance from the DOE at the time. So it was stories like that that kind of gave the people who wanted to provide greater protections to the accused the ability, a leg to stand on in moving forward. Now, when the administrations changed recently and we have a new Secretary of Education, there was this kind of sense nationally, because these were really on people's radar, that these are going to go by the wayside, that, within a few months, the Biden administration is going to inform us that these regulations have been rescinded. they are working on that, but to do it is going to take about 2 to 3 years if they are fully committed to it, because they have to go through a entire public hearing and public comment process. And realistically, it's probably not going to happen. They might tamp them down a little bit, but that is, that these new regulations are not going to go away. And yes, they absolutely provide greater protections to kids who are accused. They prohibit us from taking any disciplinary action against a student accused of sexual harassment until the entire process is completed, which can take 6 weeks. That would include suspending the kid, moving him out of the class, anything. They require that we presume that the accused is innocent of the offense until the final stage when we've gathered all the evidence. There is in no way a provision suggesting or requiring that victims or individuals who report being subject to sexual harassment be given the benefit of the doubt. These regulations do not allow for that. They do not carry kind of a believe the victim message. They carry don't disbelieve anybody message. The accused is you should presume that they're not guilty, just as you would, presume that the victim is, not lying.
So it's like enforcing doublethink, basically. Okay.
Personnel can tell you guys about this. What it's resulted in across the state is people quitting. Schools are devoting. I mean, I know Brendan personally has I have spent huge amounts of time on the phone with him, and I know that's just a drop in the bucket of the amount of time he's been spending on these things just really this year. They're incredibly burdensome and incredibly tricky to navigate, and yeah, they do protect the victim. An example I can give you is if we have an accused who supposedly engaged in sexual harassment, if we were to try to, because we are looking at the process and say, well, it's going to be 7 weeks before we can make a decision and take any action on this. So maybe we could, the accusation is that the student inappropriately groped another student. We won't discipline him for sexual harassment. We'll discipline him for just an assault, which is a school rules violation. If we're to do that, the regulations specifically provide that would constitute retaliation against the accused in violation of Title IX, and we would be subject to a claim for monetary damages by the accused for using another school rule to impose discipline for a violation that is the subject of a Title IX investigation.
So from our point of view from a school committee, is there anything that we can do in our policy to kind of, if there's a way out of that requirement, that we can kind of speed run our way out?
There is no way to speed run out, because technically, like if someone alleges sexual harassment within the scope of Title IX, and under Title IX, there's 3 types of harassment now. The definition of sexual harassment, there's 3 types. There's quid pro quo harassment, which is an employee basically, conditioning a benefit upon, an individual's compliance with their demands of a sexual nature. That's always going to be sexual harassment, always fall within the scope of Title IX. Any violation of the Clery Act or the Violence Against Women Act is also sexual harassment in violation of Title IX. And while there's a lot of provisions under those statutes which would not apply really, or you wouldn't see in a K through 12 setting, there are provisions about, non-consensual touching of a sexual nature, groping, fondling. Those are violations of the Clery Act, and that means they would constitute title violations. They would constitute sexual harassment under Title IX and obligate us to investigate in accordance with the Title IX regulations. And then the third provision is the one that's really different now, which is that under state law, if an individual subjects another individual to, basically repeated verbal statements of a sexual nature, or verbal statements of a sexual nature that are either severe or persistent or so objectively offensive as to create a hostile school environment, they are engaging in sexual harassment under state law. Under Title IX, for verbal comments to be sexual harassment, they have to be severe and persistent and so objectively offensive as to deny the target of the statements equal educational opportunity. So in mass, under state law, it's or pervasive, persistent, or objectively offensive. Under federal law, it's and. But if the allegation comes within any of those, 3 criteria, and we have to respond in accordance with Title IX, and if the complainant does not want to file a formal Title IX complaint, we are not allowed to investigate it under any other federal or state law. We are required to be hands off if they won't file a complaint. So it's almost impossible to skirt around it. I will just say though that, the way around this elaborate Title IX procedure is if we determine that no, the conduct complained of would not constitute sexual harassment as defined under Title IX, but it would constitute sexual harassment as defined under state law. Therefore, we will investigate it pursuant to our single investigator state law anti-discrimination, anti-harassment procedure. But yeah, there's no way to escape it though. And I will be honest with you that it's, I've had a number of really bad cases so far this year, cases involving essentially rapes on school grounds, really severe sexual harassment. And we have done everything we can to try to figure out ways around this elaborate 7-week process. And you really can't. It's the regulations were written in such a way as to prevent schools or complainants from avoiding going through this process in response to any report that would constitute sexual harassment under Title IX. Let me just, while I'm talking to you all about this, the one other thing I just would note about the policies, the existing policies, the references in the existing harassment policies to if it does not occur at school, it's not within the scope of our jurisdiction, is not correct. Harassment can occur off of school grounds and be actionable by the district if it results in the creation of a hostile school environment for the target of that conduct, or if it denies the target of that conduct an equal educational opportunity. So we are required to respond and investigate. We may not support that it resulted in a hostile environment, but if we get a complaint that, the student is receiving these inappropriate texts every weekend from this other student and he's sending them from his private cell phone while sitting in the comfort of his room, we can't take the position that, we're not going to respond to that. We're not going to investigate, if there's any indication that it's creating a hostile environment for those communications within the school setting.
I had a question. It left. Is that reflected in the policy, the draft that you sent us?
There's no limitation in the draft policy I sent you, nor is there a limitation in the grievance procedures.
So you took that out.
Yeah.
So I have another question about the grievances, because I saw you sent us the suggested language for the non-discrimination and harassment in a single policy.
Yep.
If I heard you correctly, you said that applies to both students and employees, the way it's written currently.
Yep.
How would you suggest that be reflected in our policies? Because we have a section for pupil services and another section for, I'm going to call it employees. It has a longer name than that.
Yeah.
But we have 2 separate sections. So would you put it in both? Would
You
give
can
it a
just
dual
put it
number?
in, there's no harm in putting it in both.
Or is there some
And-
other section we should have in our policies that considers things that apply to both? I'm just trying to sort that out.
Some districts do have policy sections where, it's policies that are applicable to both students and staff are contained within a single school committee policy manual section. But you could absolutely just, put this policy in both the personnel section and in the student section. And frankly, if you wanted to do it that way, I could probably change 6 or 7 words in the draft policy and make it look a little more employee focused. Just to distinguish a little. But the grievance
Okay, so
procedure would be the same.
So that's one thing we need to decide, I guess, is if we would like it to be an employee, or if we want it to be a separate policy for each with, so you could make those few changes or not. I see Brendan has his hand up, so I will let Brendan
Yeah, just a quick one.
comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick one. Just I want to just make sure I clarify what Attorney McAvoy said about the cases he's been working on. That he represents a lot of districts, and the specific case that you talked about with
That's not you guys, no.
Okay, so just want to clarify that. Just given no, you're good. But just given sound bites and things, I just want to be sure.
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely not. No, I haven't seen anything like that with you all. You just get the challenging ones with younger kids, and those are difficult with these procedures. They just, I will just tell you all that if you look at the draft grievance procedures, they track exactly the regulatory requirements. Like, this is not in the draft grievance procedures. It's not, novel things that we as attorneys came up with because we thought this was a smart way to do it. We wrote these grievance procedures to track the regulations specifically. The regulations really were initially written for a post-secondary setting. These regulations really were drafted for a college setting, but the US DOE decided that they were going to make them applicable to K through 12s as well, with the only difference being that at the college level, rather than having an individual decision maker make a decision in isolation based on the evidence, the college procedures provide for adversarial hearings, which you could do in a K through 12 setting, but I would really strongly discourage it, because it might seem somewhat reasonable when you're talking about 11th and 12th grade kids, but the notion of subjecting a 6th grader to cross-examination by another student's attorney about, it's just horrific.
I used to work in higher education. It's very messy in higher education too, even as applied. So I would not advise that. But I see that Jane has her hand up.
I just was wondering, would it be appropriate to put it in Series 1000 operations?
Yeah, you could do it that way as well.
I think my fear of putting it twice is that down the line we make a change and we forget that there's 2, and
Then you got conflicting. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I was just looking at that. So this is just my opinion, not as the chair, but my opinion. I was looking at the operations under our policies are really like interactions between the school committee and the superintendent and like how we do business. They're not so much policies they're operational. They're not really like policies that apply to everyone. They're more about school committee itself and how we operate. Whereas the pupil services and the personnel management sections are policies specific to those populations and parts of our districts and how things like this, how we treat them. So I don't know. I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem like it fits under operations because it's not how we like the logistics of how we do business. But that's just my opinion. And I'm just one person, so I will let us discuss how to go with this. I think we have a couple different questions.
Okay.
No, go ahead. I said, I think we have a couple different questions to decide. We have the draft harassment policy here, so I think we need to decide, if there's more thoughts on what to do with that, if we want to move toward adopting it, if we want to look at it more closely, or if if so, what direction we would like to go, if we want an employee and a student pupil services policy separate. And then based on that, then we have other policies that we need to consider deleting and proposing for deleting at the same time. So I guess I will ask, if there are, I'm sure there are other questions, but that's my sense that we need to make a decision about what we want to do to act on this policy. Originally, we were hoping to get it done this year. I don't want to rush everyone, but I don't know if we want to go through it in more detail and make sure we don't have questions, see if we have questions about it. I guess I'm asking for thoughts on what direction we should go given this new information. Go ahead, Linda Woodland.
Do you think that we could share the proposed AC non-discrimination and harassment and share it on the screen, and so we can look at it? Because I think that in
Together,
terms of the virtual
yes.
meeting, I think we should have it up on the
Yes.
screen as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, for some reason,
That
mine,
is
I usually
fine.
do that, and mine isn't allowing me unless I come off of the call and
Oh,
back on.
Can I
There's
do
some kind of
that?
update. Yeah, somebody else should be able to. I'm just having a glitch over here.
I have it on my screen, but I don't know how to do it. So let me see. Let me see if there's an option.
I think if you click on
I-
the arrow that goes up, present now, it says, I think that's where you can do it.
Oh, I don't have that. Oh,
There it
Linda
is.
Just got
has
it.
Someone's done it.
Oh, good. See, I couldn't find that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Good job,
All
Linda.
right.
Linda,
Thank
can
you,
you make
Linda.
it bigger? For my aging eyes,
Yeah,
like
if you just
zoom
go
in
to
or
view-
something?
Yeah.
view,
I
and then you can
appreciate
change
you
the-
staying with us, Matt, because we may still have questions as
Oh,
we
no,
look
I'm
at this.
totally fine. I like.
But not everyone had a chance
Maybe
to
just
see
a
this
bit bigger, like
particular-
200%? Thank you.
Good. I have a copy printed out in front of me, so I'll look at that. But do we want to go through it line by line, or do we want to give everyone a couple minutes to read it?
Should we do paragraph by paragraph?
Sure. That works last time. I think some of it, am I correct in assuming that some of it is taken from the policy that we started with, or the MASC or the MASC policy?
Yeah, I mean, this is a
Okay.
revised version of an MASC policy.
Okay. And our previous draft policy was taken somewhat from that as well. So, okay. So we'll go with that. All right. So we'll look at this. I guess paragraph by paragraph makes sense. So we can see if there are any questions or thoughts about it.
I can, just anticipating a question, tell you all that the provision referencing access to all designated youth groups, that's the Boy Scouts Act requirement.
Aha.
I would not say unequivocally. There's one of the attorneys in my office used to be an office for civil rights attorney, and he's a proponent of always having that sentence in there. I don't think you have to have that sentence in there.
Okay.
I think the first paragraph seems fine. I
have
think it's great.
I have
Yeah,
a
I thought it
question
was
about the
fine.
first paragraph. Can you scroll back up to it?
Yep.
Linda, there we go. Thank you. So I'm noticing that in the second sentence, pregnancy or pregnancy status is mentioned, and I don't see it in the first sentence. Am I missing something, or is there a reason to have a different list?
You could put it. I mean, I put it in there only because it's a state law, not a federal law. That's the new Pregnancy and Parenting Act,
Uh-huh.
and it's arguably already covered under gender discrimination.
Uh-huh.
Because obviously,
Right.
be hard to discriminate against a male student or employee based on their pregnancy status.
Right.
But I mean, you could have you could include
So-
it too.
Do people feel strongly that it should be included in the first sentence so they match as well? Or no?
I will defer to what's written, as there are people that are well more educated than I am on this matter and have spent a lot of
Okay.
time thinking about this.
Okay.
I mean, theoretically, we could probably just combine sentence 1 and sentence 2 into a single sentence.
Yeah,
That'd be
And
great.
I think
Doesn't-
that
Okay,
would
that
be
would be
good.
a little
great. So it would
redundant.
basically say they do not tolerate discrimination or
On
harassment,
the basis
basically.
of race, color, national origin.
Okay,
Well, yeah, I mean, I would probably say we just not tolerate discrimination, including harassment against students, parents, employees, or the general public. Because you see the second one is also references harassment.
okay. Does that sound good to everyone? Shorter is, I'm always in favor of shorter.
Shorter is always good, yes.
Yeah, it
Saving
reads a
space.
little redundant, so I think that makes it just a little
Yeah.
more
Better.
straightforward.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right,
I think so too.
all right. Okay,
So I don't
So-
have editing access on this
You-
document.
You should now, Linda. You just might have to hit refresh again. I just did it.
Okay, let's see.
You know, the Zoom, I guess.
thank you, Linda.
I think it's down below. Yeah, right there.
I'm sorry, can you backtrack on I was looking
Yes.
through tech stuff, so missed the exact words.
Says, I think he said the Wachusett Regional School District does not tolerate discrimination, including harassment against
Does not just tolerate discrimination or harassment.
or harassment. Okay,
Yep.
that's good.
I don't really like the word against with harassment, but it could be of
Or harassment of, okay, that makes more sense.
students, parents, employees, or the general public on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, pregnancy or parenting status, or pregnancy status, age, or disability.
Okay. So we need to insert the pregnancy after gender identity.
What I just did in editing it here was I just cut everything after on the basis of in the first sentence.
Oh,
It
got
just-
it.
Deleted everything back where it says race, color, religion.
Okay. But then you also lose the immigration status. Does that need to be included?
It doesn't technically. I mean, that comes within national origin, so you don't technically have to specify.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Does that
less.
look good to everyone?
That was more of an issue a couple years ago where we were recommending inclusion of that because there were a number of cases involving school personnel, like not in Wachusett, but in other districts,
Okay.
reporting kids and parents' immigration status to federal authorities, and was found by the U.S. DOE to be a violation of the law.
Okay. I see Jane has her hand up.
Yeah, I just, we just went through that civil rights review with Jesse, and, it's this very precise language, right, that needs to be on like the letterhead and the website. So do we have the right sentence, or do we need to, I know we looked at that, I think, with you, Matt, but should it be from this policy?
It should, whatever you're putting in your non-discrimination notices
Yeah.
should be reflected in this policy in the top, in the first sentence.
Okay.
So
So
if there's something you have in there that's not included here, we can certainly add it.
okay.
Okay. Linda Longbelial?
So are you saying that we shouldn't have immigration status as a separate category from national origin because it's not technically phrased that way in the federal law or the state law?
Right, you don't have to,
Uh-huh.
because that would come within the
National
scope
origin, right.
of Title VI,
Okay.
discrimination on the basis of national
Right.
origin.
Yeah, I get that. I guess I'm thinking about the cases you mentioned about people reporting kids to or families to immigration. And I even if it's not required, and since this is a statement of what we don't want to tolerate, I think that I would prefer to keep it in or put it in because I think we want to send a message specifically that that we don't tolerate that that kind of behavior is not consistent with school policy. It
Noted.
would be my view. I guess I'd rather be over-inclusive than under-inclusive is the bottom line.
Okay.
Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, I think it's a good compromise. Strike a sentence and leave some verbiage in.
The
Okay.
only thing I might volunteer to you on that, and you know, I do primarily student stuff, less employment stuff, although we have an attorney in the office who does employment stuff too. My only question in adding immigration to that sentence there, now that I'm thinking about it, would be whether that might conflict with some obligations we have under federal law as far as hiring.
Well, but discrimination, what you mean, federal law requires people to document their immigration status and for employers to check for that, right? And if someone doesn't have the right papers for working, I don't think it's discrimination to, not hire them, to refuse to hire them or to dismiss them. Because I guess when I think of discrimination, I think of something that's unlawful. But what do people think? What do you think?
For USDOE's purposes, they would consider discrimination basically, disparate treatment, treating them other than we are treating, all other members of the class. I don't know if that could present an issue. I mean, I'm happy to, I can talk to our employees.
If you think it could present an issue, then I guess I would be okay with taking it out because we don't need to raise unnecessary issues. And if national origin covers it, then maybe.
Yeah, national origin would definitely cover it.
Yeah, well, that does make sense. Yes.
Okay. I see that Jane has her hand up again.
I just noticed like the sentence we crossed out did have homelessness in it.
Oh, yeah.
I know that that's added at the end, but again, thinking of that non-discrimination statement in our letterhead and all that, does homelessness need to be in that sentence or no?
We can, if you want to add it in the sentence, we could actually just get rid of the consistent with the requirements of the McKinney-Vento Act.
Oh, the McKinney-Vento is homelessness.
Yeah.
Right.
But what I'm thinking of again is that sentence in that non-discrimination that kind of we copy and paste in everything. So should we add that in?
Sure, and then we just get rid of the last sentence.
That sounds like a good plan. Yeah.
Right.
I see Linda Willand has a hand as well.
So just with these, is it worth taking out the sentence, or is it actually clarifying to have the two separate lists and in terms of practicality of where the statement needs to appear? Should we keep it as this paragraph is laid out already? I guess what I don't see if we're necessarily clarifying by cutting out.
The upside of leaving it the way it is if there are any kind of McKinney-Vento Act changes. I mean, because that is what provides the protection solely for individuals on the basis of homeless status.
So I'm meaning just leave the paragraph as is, without the cross out, without combining the sentences, just as it originally was stated. I feel like as we're changing it, it seems like we're losing clarity.
I'm good either way.
I kind of
Linda, I agree with you.
Yeah, I do too, Linda.
I agree
Especially
with you.
you think of the title, non-discrimination and harassment. So it's almost like one sentence is non-discrimination, one's harassment. It might flow better.
I guess that I see where people are coming from, but again, I prefer being over-inclusive to being under-inclusive. And the fact that pregnancy and pregnancy status is not in the first sentence bothers me, because I wouldn't want someone to think that they can be discriminated against a pregnant
Just
person.
can't harass them.
But they can't harass them, right? I just think it just strikes me as odd.
Could
it
could we
strikes
just
me as
add
odd.
pregnancy to the line about discrimination then, rather
Yeah,
than?
I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, I
fine.
mean, that's how
Yeah.
I'm envisioning what you guys are talking about, which is I'm
Yeah,
just changing the first
That sounds-
sentence to does not tolerate
Yep.
discrimination or harassment on the basis of, and then you have that entire list that appears in the second sentence.
Right. Yeah, I prefer
Yeah.
that personally.
okay. So it should say or harassment on the basis of.
Yeah.
Discrimination or harassment.
Can
on
we
the
be
basis of.
super inclusive and say on the basis of anything?
I think you can discriminate
People
because,
shouldn't be harassed or discriminated for any reason.
well,
Well, that's right, but these are the protected classifications under federal and state law.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
So, you don't want to open like your grievance policy to, I was harassed because, I have brown hair. kind of
Right. Right.
then you're imposing all of these procedural obligations on an issue that can it's not on the basis of protected membership in a protected class, and really should probably just be addressed through educational interventions within the school setting rather than
Right.
formal discrimination grievance procedure.
So are we back to keeping 2 sentences? Did I miss that?
I'm okay with reducing.
Thank you
it to-
for
I
taking
thought
my
we were just
question
adding the
seriously.
pregnancy to the first one, but now I see 2 sentences again.
Well, I guess in looking at this and hearing what you all have to say, it seems to me like you're not going to convolute it if you want to combine sentence 1 and 2 into a single sentence. I mean,
I think it's
So if
perfect.
we're basically saying the same thing in less
Yeah.
words.
So if you say the district does not tolerate discrimination
Or harassment.
or harassment on the
Right.
basis of,
Right.
oh wait, discrimination against students, parents, employees, or the general,
Public. on
how
the
would you
basis-
word that?
Hmm?
How would you word that?
Well,
Where would the on the
Westchester
basis?
Regional School District does not tolerate discrimination or harassment of students, parents, employees, or the general public on the basis of race,
Oh, okay.
religion,
Thank you.
national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, pregnancy, or
All right.
parent's age or disability.
Okay,
Consistent with the requirements of the McKinney-Vento Act, the district also does not discriminate against students on the basis of homelessness.
okay.
think that's
So
fine.
you would take out that second Wachusett sentence because all those are now included in the first sentence.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, we'll move to the second paragraph. Which I sense is mostly right out of law, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's just standard stuff. We're required to have a coordinator responsible for each of implementation of each of these statutes.
Right.
Is that you currently, Brendan?
It is.
For the next 10 days.
Yeah.
You're not the
so-
504 though, are you?
504
Yeah.
as well.
Oh, you are?
Yes, he is, which is, I don't really understand, but I didn't create it.
Literally
Yeah.
everything, all the time.
He's also
Yeah.
the resident contact tracer.
He's everything.
He's everything.
We'll get to that before we leave though. Okay. The second paragraph, then, does anyone have any issues with the second paragraph? I think
Nope.
it's taken straight from law and it seemed to make sense to me.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, well,
third
just
paragraph.
what I would just tell you with the third paragraph is, what I would recommend doing is we're just gonna completely make sure that in your the language in your non-discrimination flyer that you post on the bottom of every document is, we have the exact same categories, and we just want to, repeat those here as well. So I would probably include pregnancy or parenting status in paragraph 3 as well.
Yes, yes. That's what I was going to mention too. Thank you.
Sorry, is it parenting progress status or pregnancy status?
Pregnancy.
I think it's pregnancy status.
Pregnancy or pregnancy. What is it?
Status.
Is
Thank
it
you.
pregnancy
I have
status? Why is it pregnant? Why is there a distinction there? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I had the same question.
I don't really know why they did that. Let's see.
I when I've read that before, I've presumed it means pregnancy is if you're actually pregnant, and pregnancy status could include if you have been pregnant or if you are in, who knows. I don't know, but that's how I've read it in the past, that it
The
covers
pregnant-
any possible.
It's the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act.
Huh.
Yeah.
And expressly prohibits employment on the basis of, it expressly prohibits employment discrimination on the basis of pregnancy and pregnancy-related conditions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. Pregnancy related.
It
So,
could also
well, that's
extend
That
to
makes a
things
little
like
more
if
sense,
you're
condition.
yeah, it
miscarrying or
does.
other things,
Yeah.
and things we don't want to go into, but
Should we?
it extends.
Can I,
to all kinds of
can I
things.
can I just interject? Sorry, I'll put my hand up.
No, go ahead.
Should we have, if the actual language in the statute is pregnancy related conditions, should we have that in there instead of pregnancy status? Because, I mean, that could be things like you need to be on bed rest or,
Exactly.
something like that. Instead of pregnancy status, if that's what the law says specifically.
You can do that. I mean, I think status like encompasses the conditions, but you could change it to pregnancy or pregnancy-related conditions.
I mean, I think so. But I see Linda's raising her hand.
Go ahead,
Yeah, I'm
Linda.
going to be contrarian. I think that it's broader to leave it as status. I think that if you change it to conditions, then it's going to be too narrowed down.
I was just doing a quick Google search and it
I
indicates the patient's
would-
like pregnant, not pregnant, or the pregnancy status is unknown.
That's
I would
interesting.
agree
Interesting.
with the broader sense personally, because then you
Okay.
get into what's pregnant and what's not, and I don't even want to go there.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I think this is broad enough personally,
Okay.
but that's just me. Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions on the third paragraph? Okay. All right. Oh, we're almost done with it. All
Yay.
right. So do we need to add the pregnancy status language to that sentence as well? So it matches what's above,
Yes, we just
or
want.
whatever
Yeah.
we had in the first paragraph, we need to carry over.
Right.
I don't know if there's anything else we're missing. I can't remember. Okay.
Does it say gender
Oh,
identity at the top also, or just gender?
Should say gender identity at the top as well.
It did say gender identity.
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Both.
The very
Yes,
first
that is
sentence?
specified.
Okay.
And I'm sure you guys all know, but that is only a state law requirement.
Yes.
Yep.
There's no federal protection on the basis of gender identity.
Right.
Okay. And then, okay, does anyone else have, Linda?
I do have a question.
Yep, Linda Woodland. I see the queue.
So just about this whatever number paragraph we're on,
Yep.
has the grievance process for discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. So the two separate processes that were described as us needing to have, I guess we don't need to enumerate them here. This
No, you
covers.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's why if the last sentence of that should be filed in accordance with the district's grievance procedures. That's why
Yes.
it's 2.
Okay. I
Yep.
see Laura has a question.
Yeah, thanks. I feel like this is the first paragraph where it talks about retaliation. And I'm wondering if that's an oversight or if that was intentional, and how we would, if there's any need to clarify what retaliation might look like or be, or if it's just that somebody complains that they are being retaliated as a consequence for anything.
Well,
Go ahead.
the grievance procedure, I mean, basically I reference it in the terms of the grievance procedures because the grievance procedures contain specific provisions about, prohibiting retaliation for participating in the grievance procedures or for cooperating with our investigation pursuant to the grievance procedures. So that's why we kind of keep the retaliation provision under, but down in the bottom paragraph as opposed to the general non-discrimination or harassment statement at the top of the policy. Because retaliation on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, sexual orient, that's harassment. But why we're referencing retaliation in the second to last paragraph is really because that's specifically provided for under all of the grievance procedures. That we have to notify all witnesses that they have the right to be free from retaliation, and that any individual who retaliates against anyone who files a complaint of harassment or discrimination or who cooperates in the investigation thereof is also subject to disciplinary sanctions.
That makes sense to me. I do have a question. I think you said earlier that you drafted the policies or the grievance procedures. Brendan, do they exist in our district currently in any form, or is it something we need to, I don't know. The attorney has to talk with administration. I guess I'm concerned about implementing a policy that refers to procedures that don't yet exist.
Well, this policy, if approved, would then allow us to have the superintendent put the grievance procedures in place. Correct, Attorney McAvoy?
That is correct, but I mean, essentially, the grievance procedures, because they mirror the and track exactly the federal regulations. What the district has been doing to date is essentially implementing the grievance procedures because we are implementing the federal regulations. But what you want to do is you need to have your own separate set of grievance procedures. That's actually required under the regulations.
Okay. So we are helping the district meet our federal obligation by
doing
this.
That's exactly right.
And that's a conversation that someone would have with our superintendent about that and hopefully follow through on.
Yep.
I just want to make sure it actually happens. So I also see there's reference in the last paragraph to
I would do that. I mean, once this is approved.
Jane would. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. I just want to make sure it doesn't get lost in the process. And then the last paragraph talks about handbooks. So we also would need to add those procedures to all of the handbooks in the district as well.
You would do it much like you do with like a bullying complaint, which is with the requirements under the bullying statute, which you have to have the kind of complaint specific provisions of your bullying plan in your student handbook. You don't have to have the whole bullying plan, only like the how to report and how it's responded to. That's all that you have in the handbook. Because to be frank, like the Title IX grievance procedures, I think they're like 16 pages.
Wow.
Okay.
And you don't You don't have to have those all in your handbook. We actually have to post them publicly on the district's website. We also have to post on the district's website all training materials used over the past 7 years in training staff on these new Title IX procedures. So yeah, you're gonna have to have, it's like the bullying prevention intervention plan. You have to have a tab on your website that says
we do not. So this is good.
Most,
I
a lot don't. Yeah.
I see that Laura has her hand up as well.
Thanks. And I was actually just gonna mention that that I would like to see us in this last paragraph not only identify the need to put this information in a handbook, but also explicitly state that it will be published on our website.
That
Oh,
absolutely.
it does say that. I'm sorry. I just missed that.
Oh,
I missed that last sentence.
Oh,
Thank you.
good. Yes, last sentence. Yeah.
I'm noticing that actually in the preceding paragraph, immigration status is still there. And I think we took it out above.
I'd probably just take that out there.
They should match to make it easy.
Yes, they
Yeah.
should.
To be honest, I tend to throw that in a lot because I have kind of a pet peeve about it. I found it very problematic a couple of years ago when I had school districts talking about wanting to report kids to ICE, and it's just not consistent with the law. And so we were kind of being very aggressive about noting it everywhere we could.
Well, see, now I'm a little confused because I like having immigration status in there.
I see
everywhere.
Linda's raised her hand on that.
Sorry, I'll be quiet.
It's highlighted on the screen. We do have immigration status in the first paragraph.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it would be consistent to have it in the bottom as well.
Okay, good. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just for scrolling purposes, should we start at the top and read through it and make sure we're good?
Yes. And then I'll ask a question I have. It's a general question. So, all right.
Again, the youth group section, you could take that sentence out if you wanted to. It doesn't hurt to have it in there. I will tell you, if you ever had a federal civil rights review, they would like to see it there. But I would not take the position that it's essential that it be in this particular policy.
We do have a policy on our building use separately. I wonder if it would be acceptable in that.
Yeah.
It currently is just so facilities hat here. We do currently have it, and it's one of the policies that's on our docket. So we can keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, so you could strike it from this statement if you wanted to.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. If it's covered in another policy, then I think it makes sense because otherwise it's kind of random without context.
Yep.
Okay. Good. All right.
Are we also subject to Title III, the public accommodations provisions of the ADA? I know we're subject to Title II, but does Title III also apply?
Yes.
We should add Title III.
Yeah, I mean, what are you talking about? Adding Title III into here?
Yeah, I'm just asking.
I mean, I don't think that, to be candid, you don't have to specify Title II in here. It could just say the Americans with Disabilities Act. That would be a better way to do it. Because we don't have a Title II coordinator, we have an ADA coordinator.
Right. True. Of course, we specify all the other titles. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, Title VII.
Right, but Title VI is, is national origin, ethnicity,
Uh-huh.
and 504 is all disability.
Right. Yeah.
76.5 is everything. That's the state statute.
Uh-huh.
I mean, frankly, actually, now looking at it, I would probably recommend. I would just say the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Just
I'm
take
okay
out
with
the
that.
Title II.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
So then it covers the whole thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that is better,
Okay.
actually.
Okay. We're getting there.
The
All right. Good. Okay. I don't see any hands. Oh, Linda.
I'm probably jumping the gun. I don't know if you're ready for a motion, but
I
I'm
was
ready
just
to make
saying I
one.
didn't see any hands. I was going to ask if there were any other questions, but yes, we can actually discuss after motion. So feel free. I will. Yes.
Could I make
Okay.
one suggestion here and on the final paragraph and looking at this?
Yes.
Shall identify the above referenced statutes and this policy. I think there might be a word missing there. It says, at least in the one I'm looking at on your screen right now, it says
Yeah.
for the above, the last sentence of the final paragraph states for the above referenced statutes and this policy and be posted on the district's website.
Oh, yeah.
So it should say, and this policy, it should actually say in this policy and the applicable grievance procedures shall be.
Uh-huh. That makes sense.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, just call out if I'm doing something wrong. I think I
I
followed.
think it needs to be in a different spot. I think, and this policy.
right.
Oh, you're making it a new sentence. Oh, I see what
Yeah.
you're doing. This policy and the relevant grievance procedures. I like.
Yes.
That. You're right.
Yeah, and the applicable grievance procedures
Yes.
shall be posted.
Yes, that's better. You're right.
Website.
Yes. That's good.
Yes, agreed.
Can we,
This
Do we
do
want
we,
to say shall be posted or shall also be posted?
I should just say shall.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
did we decide yet? Is this going to be where this is going to be?
No, I'm going to get to that.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So are we good with the language? Does anyone else have any language thoughts? Okay. So, okay, I'm trying to decide which direction this should go. I am fine entertaining a motion and then deciding where it should go, except that the number is part of the policy itself. So I guess we probably need to decide where it needs to go. So I will ask that question. The way we wrote it just now applies to both, I think, students and staff. I don't know if we should put it under each or if we should recommend some new category that applies to both, which doesn't exist, but I suspect there are other policies. I guess the question is it better to have it in two places? Or are there if we did have it in two places, are there words we would need to tweak to reflect that? So it would be slightly different? Or do we need a separate section that doesn't exist right now for, you know, something like umbrella policies, or I don't know what to call it, but.
Uh-huh.
Jane?
I'm just wondering, is there a way to put it in both, but then somewhere on the document say somehow
Reference.
so that it's connected, like reference, so like this is right, you know, under the
Yeah.
pupil personnel, and then you also reference the other number, and that way if there's ever a change, then, you know, people
Yeah.
be sure to do it in both. Is that
That does
sense?
exist in
Okay.
some of our current policies. There's references at the bottom, that there's legal references, and then there's references to other like related policies. So we could do that. Does anyone else have other thoughts?
Well, the only thing I would say to you all, I guess, is I'm looking at some of your other policies here online, and I'm looking at like your even some of the ones that we recommended maybe getting rid of. I mean, it would also apply to employees as well, and they're appearing in the student section.
Oh,
So maybe you can get away with just having it in the one section. I mean, it's the reality is you have the appropriate policy. You know, someone might have to
okay.
like look at more than one section to find it.
Yeah. Maybe
yeah,
that's a
maybe
bigger question we need to ask later. I see Linda Woodland.
So I liked that Jane's original suggestion of putting it in the 1000 series because it is overarching all of the district business, even if it's not a specific operation, just that it covers school committee members, it covers superintendent, covers parents, staff, students, obviously. So putting it in the first batch, I think also is a commitment
Mm-hmm.
that we can, I mean, it's a soft commitment, I guess, or a gesture. But I thought that made sense to me.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
You all, if you know off the top of your heads, but in your general non-discrimination statement, that was, oh, that's P6631. So that's also in the student pupil services section, although that definitely applies to everybody as well. So what I might suggest to you is if you're going to go with putting the anti-harassment discrimination policy in the 1000 series, I'd probably move 6631 up there too.
Okay.
That's just your general non-discrimination notice.
I see Linda Woodland again.
Okay, so that was my question, just to, I think I lost the plot a little bit there on why we have the two different, the ones that we're just going through now and the 6631. Is there a reason to have both, or would this supplant the other?
No, you should have both. You should have a
Okay.
single policy just stating what your position is on discrimination. Just a short, every district has one of these, and that's your 6631A.
Okay. You know, if we move them both, then it would make sense as overall operations. But if it's, then we have to change the title of that one so it doesn't say policy related to pupil services.
Right.
I don't know if that's
Right.
a formal change or not, or if that's just added.
You would just change it to notice of non-discrimination.
Uh-huh.
Oh, notice of non-discrimination.
Yeah,
Okay.
Most districts are calling it, referring to it as.
Okay. That would be a policy revision as well. So I'm fine with that. It's okay. I'm making a list. I'll come back to it. Let's finish the one we have in front of us. Does anyone else have thoughts on where it should go?
So I agree with Jane about making it a 1000 series
Okay.
policy. And I'm ready to second the motion if that motion.
Okay.
put on the table.
Then we need okay. I have Linda Woodland.
Sorry to jump in again. Do we need a specific number? And if we do, I have a suggestion. That's not research, just a off the cuff suggestion, and I'm ready to make a motion
ahead.
if that works. My
Yeah,
suggestion is to do 1,000 as setting
a policy for everyone.
setting the policy.
Uh-huh.
1,000. And so in that case, the motion would be to recommend to the full committee for adoption new policy 1,000, non-discrimination and harassment.
I second that motion.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion?
Just a quick question. What do we have a current policy 1,000? And if so, what is it?
No.
No, we don't. Okay.
No, we
We don't.
start at 1110.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
So
that's
it'd be policy related to operations, and then, yeah. Sorry, I lost my page. Okay. And then just 1,000. So we have that. So it would be P 1,000, basically, would be the number. Okay. All right. Do we have any other discussion before we take a vote?
Do we need a motion? We can make it separate to repeal. I thought there was like, was that a
going to
separate
do that
discussion?
separate after we pass this. I was going to do it separate and hopefully in a
enough.
group.
I just
I'll
didn't
get to
want to lose
that.
track. Fair enough.
Wanted to make
Thank
sure
you.
we have this done first.
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. All right. Great.
I put the
motion in the
text.
chat. That looks correct to me. Does anyone have any objection?
I would just read it.
So we have a motion.
Well, yeah, I just read it because people won't be able to see the chat publicly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it says we have a motion to recommend to the full committee for adoption new policy 1,000, policy for operations, non-discrimination and harassment. So let's take a vote. I think I can see everyone. So, Brett,
Beardmore, yes.
Bennett, yes.
Bennett.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Bennett. My
no, but that's okay. You're
Bennett,
next.
yes.
So
Okay,
we
get them
have-
both.
All right, we have two yes. Linda Longbalil,
Yes.
Linda Woodland.
Woodland, yes.
Okay, see, now I can't see everyone. So hold on. Sorry. Laura,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
did I get everyone? I feel like I missed someone. I did not vote. I will vote yes. Okay, if I don't think I missed anyone. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the motion passes. Great. Brendan, can we get that on the agenda for the next meeting, hopefully Monday? Yes.
I
Okay.
will. I'll talk to
Okay.
Randy, but I think we can.
Yes, Brandy's gonna hate us, but yes, we have several things now. I see Laura has a hand. Go ahead.
So given the adoption of that new policy, I think we need a motion to repeal the policies P6434 sexual harassment, P6437 promoting civil rights and prohibiting harassment, discrimination, and hate crimes, and
Mhm.
P5235 on sexual harassment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will take a roll call vote.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brett?
No, Linda, were you waving your hand?
Sorry, I'm just trying to do the minutes and get the motion typed down and get your attention to read it out and let me get it in the chat.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am. Okay, so the
I was
Linda,
motion
maybe you want to
Yes.
stop presenting.
Okay,
Linda, stop
The motion-
presenting and we'll have more of our screen available to us.
Yeah.
yes,
There
thank
you go.
you. Okay, so the motion is to repeal policy P6434, sexual harassment, people under pupil services, policy P6437. Oh, thank you, Linda. Thank you. All right, I'll go with that. To recommend to the full committee to repeal policy 6434, sexual harassment, policy P6437, promoting civil rights and prohibiting harassment, discrimination, and hate crimes, and P5235, sexual harassment personnel. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Laura?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Brett?
Beardmore, yes.
Linda Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Linda Longbelial?
Longbelial, yes.
Krista?
Denny, yes.
And Gustafson, yes. Okay, great. Okay. Okay, I see hand by Laura.
So I would like to also make a motion for, and maybe this is out of order, I don't know, but to revise the policy 6631A on non-discrimination to simply renumber to a series 1010.
Okay. I'll give Linda a minute.
A
So
friendly
you are,
suggestion, and not, maybe you said it, then title
Yep.
too, right? We're gonna change the title to
So that
non,
one is a non-discrimination.
should it be notice of non-discrimination, or am I in the wrong one?
No, I think you are correct. The notice
You
of
are correct.
non-discrimination. Thank you
Yes.
for clarifying. Yes, that I will amend to include that wording in my motion.
and does everything in that look, can I ask Attorney, actually, we don't have a second yet. We should get a second and then I
Second.
can discuss. Okay. May I ask Attorney McAvoy, did everything in that policy look fine to you when you looked at it? Were there
Which
any
one? In
changes?
the general statement of non-discrimination?
General non-discrimination, yes.
Yes, I would want to make sure that we're completely consistent with the groups we're identifying and like, as far as
Okay.
Jane, what you got approval from DESE on. So we want to have like exactly the same protected classes. reference.
Okay.
Both that and-
So we would want to double check that.
Yep.
Do we want to do that for Monday and try to get that done, or do we want, I would love to get it done, but I don't know if we have that information to look at it right now.
Let me see here.
Make sure. Would it
Let's see
just
if
be
I
the
can
same
find it.
grouping that we had in the policy we just passed?
Yeah, it would be the same grouping in the first sentence. Or in the first sentence of the last policy.
This one does not, currently as written, the non-discrimination 6631A does not include the pregnancy classes. I can see that. And I don't think it includes immigration either. So we would just want to make sure those sentences matched.
Right.
And can I also, let me think, when was it redone? Sorry. It was last revised in 2019. So I just wanted to make sure the legal references matched. And we're not missing anything, but I assume that they are fine. But
Let's see. And are you at the policy, the non-discrimination and harassment one, or the
6631A,
all right, that one I'm trying to find here. Let's see.
the one that we are going to change the title of and move. Since that is a technical revision, I just wanted to make sure that we had, if we had anything else to revise, we would just take care of that.
Yeah, now I just lost it. I'm trying to find it here. Sorry. Why am
I just wouldn't want to rush it, because that one, like I said, like it changes the letterhead, like all of our paper, like a lot of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So if you make a change in that, and I thought we just went through that. I could be wrong, Brendan. I know when we went through that civil rights review, we kind of researched this.
We did. I just having trouble finding the.
Yeah.
So I don't think that this got a second. So if it doesn't get a second, then we just can push it off to another day.
It did, actually.
Oh, it did.
It did.
Okay.
It did. That's how we got.
I can
started.
withdraw
Can
my
we withdraw the
motion.
motion? Do we
I
wanna
can withdraw the motion and put it on the agenda for the next meeting. And then we can move forward with it then, if that's the case. I'm fine with that. So I can withdraw the motion.
Great.
Jane, if you want, I can coordinate with you and we could just make sure everything's consistent and then I could resubmit it to you to.
Okay.
To the group.
Can I ask a logistical question? That's fine. I am fine with that. But logistically, that means that it will be brought probably at our, if we were to get it sorted out, probably at our last meeting of this subcommittee. Can it carry over to the next school committee? Or do we have to start the approval process over again when we have a new committee seated in May? Linda, do you have insights?
I have experience with this situation.
Yes.
We just carried on. We did the first reading at our last May meeting, and then we did our second reading of facilities
With the new committee.
With the new committee.
Then we're good. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to have to bring it twice with new committee. Okay.
And Malia, I would also ask that we put policy 6437.1 on the agenda for that next meeting. Because
Yes.
I will expect
To
a
review.
renumber on that and a revision too. So those are two that I want to just make sure that we tighten up and move forward.
Okay. Yep. So okay, great. I see. Linda Woodland. Yes. The number policy.
I put it in.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Laura did it. Thank you. It was on the memo as policies to maintain. So we're going to review both of those at our next meeting to pick up the language changes and make sure that they're all in order and in line and consistent. Okay. Laura, did you officially remove your motion?
I did.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. All right. Are there any other policy review that we need to do in this meeting that we did not get to? Okay, fantastic. Thank you all for your patience and efforts. I know it's getting late, but I think that was worth it. We've been working on that one for over a year to
Thank you,
untangle
Matt,
that.
for your input.
And I think we have a really great plan. Linda?
I just wanted to say
Linda?
thank you to Mr. McAvoy for coming in and helping us carry that over the finish line, hopefully to the full committee. That was greatly appreciated.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk with you about these things because, a lot of not in every district is this the case. And we find out after the fact and I say to myself, oh, just wish they'd talked to us before they did this. And I really appreciate it. And just, I do want to just mention that, the loss of Brendan will be big for the district. Brendan, I deal with a lot of administrators and, I would put Brendan at the top of the pile.
Yep.
And, I've been working with Wachusett since Al Tutela was the superintendent. And
oh, wow.
Brendan has, Brendan has been great. So I just wanted to take this chance to say thanks to Brendan for everything.
Thank you very much.
Been a couple of
I would like to take this chance to say, what the heck, Brendan?
Yeah.
Aw.
About it.
I like how Matt
That's
said that.
I think you need to pull a Tom Brady and come back tomorrow.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not as
Here's my
talented.
bribe.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
I think we would all second that. And, what can we do to bring you back?
Yes.
Thanks. I will miss working here.
Decrease burnout. That's what we would have to do. Decrease burnout for Brendan.
We have one more meeting with you, but it'll be a little busy that week, I think. So,
Yeah.
Um,
And actually, this is my last one.
Yeah.
I won't be at
Oh.
the next one. So,
oh, we did not know that. So thank you.
yeah.
I'll be
Thank
there.
you for that.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
Jane will be.
Okay,
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
good. So Jane is our interim person at the moment then. That's good to know. I believe I'll be chairing that one as well. So we'll chat. So is the attorney still here? I had the next item on the agenda has to do with the hate crimes resource guide, and I don't know that we really have the bandwidth to dig deeply into that yet. But I guess I had a general question. I see you shaking your head, McAvoy. Are
It
there?
does not impose any additional obligations on you.
Okay, so we can cross that off our agenda then.
Yeah.
So
That,
we have everything
it is a
covered.
resource, and it's clear, it's definitely a resource that, all district administrators should be familiar with, but they're actually quite specific in the guide that the intent of it was in no way to impose any additional obligations on you. And they basically say,
Great.
Massachusetts already has statutes and policies in place to address bullying as well as harassment. The goal of this guide is to offer resources to families, students, and educators to confront and respond to bias-related incidents, but does not require that you create any additional policies or procedures.
Fantastic. That's great news. Thank you. So I'm glad we covered that then, so we can take it off our agenda now. The next item is the holidays for the 2022-23 year. I'm looking at the time. I do want to keep moving on though with that. We have a few more minutes left. But I know that there was a document we received, and I'm assuming, did that come from Laura? Okay. I don't know if there are things that you wanted to point out or review. I think we could do a brief kind of check-in on where we are with that, and then we can pick it up at our next meeting for a more detailed discussion, but at least we can. Matt, yes, sorry, Attorney McAvoy.
Are you all done with me, or do you guys want me in this part of it?
No, I think we are. Thank
Okay.
you.
Can you stay and then continue coming to all the meetings?
I would love to.
But I'm on business and finance, so I would maybe not love that.
Yes,
I love
really.
you, Matt, but
I'm
appreciate
gonna
that.
tell you something that I probably shouldn't say out loud, but I don't charge my districts for going to committee meetings and stuff like that.
Oh, well, thank you for that.
Wow.
You're
I
invited.
appreciate that.
Yes, you
I
are,
view it-
definitely.
I view it- It's part of the job that,
Oh, well, thank you.
I think district council needs to be available to committees and committee subgroups. And I never want you thinking twice about having questions answered because you're worried about incurring costs. So I
Perfect.
never charge
Lovely.
for committee appearances and stuff like that. So
That's good
That is
news.
really
So
good
thank you
news
for
to
that.
know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes,
Good,
thank
good,
you so
helpful
much for
information.
your efforts and time on this. We appreciate it.
all right, thank you guys.
All right, have a good
All
night.
right, have a good night.
Good night.
Okay, so we'll pick up the holidays. I don't know if you want to give a brief overview of what you've sent us or what you've discovered, Laura.
Yeah. So just to clarify, what I've done is I looked at all the dates for 2022, which of course is already set in stone. We've already approved the calendar. We're in it. And then 2023, 2024, and 2025 to see what dates we have already obligated with federal holidays, what dates are already embedded into pre-existing vacations, and then any that may or may not impact our school year, depending on snow days, end of school year, and so forth. What I couldn't fill in the information, and I can share this on the screen so that people can see it if they're watching from home. Let me see if I can pick the screen that I want. Here, calendar, here it is. Okay, can you see my calendar screen? No, maybe I don't have the ability to do that.
You should be able to, Laura.
Yeah, I guess I don't. So at any rate, what I also did was looked at some religious holidays that may be a consideration for us moving forward if we were to either acknowledge that these holidays may or may not impact some of our community members who are in school.
Keep talking.
So
I'm going to
just,
see if I can pull it up.
yeah, just increase an awareness to our staff, to our student body, that these are, you know, religious holidays that some people may be observing. So that just an educational piece. We may want teachers to say, you know what, these are sort of block-out dates for tests, or make homework light on these, like an awareness of how we might better serve our community members. And if we had a substantial number of people within our district who are observing these holidays, and we have attendance rates that are impacted, perhaps we need to think, you know, more comprehensively in putting it into our calendar. So there's lots of ways that we can go with this information, but further down at the bottom, right there where you are, just go a little bit further down, Malia, you'll see where it says some religious holidays. And I just took some that I knew of and some that I really don't know that much about, to be honest. And I just identified, you know, what those religious holidays are, and more importantly, when they would occur. And then based on when they occur, may impact, you know, our thinking. For example, you know, if let's say that Good Friday, of course, it always happens on a Friday. If we had a substantial, and we do, I think do we already take Good Friday off? I can't remember.
No.
No. I know my district does, and some other districts do. So I couldn't remember what we do here in Wachusett. But these are the dates when Good Friday is observed over the next 4 years. And so if we had a high attendance issue, or a low attendance issue, as it were, on that day, we may want to revise our calendar based on that information, right? If it's a non-issue, that's fine. If it's you know, if these are holy days for people and we want to minimize homework on those days or minimize testing on those days, that's good information for our teachers to have. Yom Kippur, sometimes it lands during the week, and sometimes it lands on the weekend. And so depending on the year, it may or may not impact our, you know, our school year. And then there's some other holidays that personally are less known to me. There's the Islamic holidays, which are further down. These are the Jewish holidays. Scroll down and you'll see that I have some Islamic holidays. Then there's the Hindu holiday, and then there's a Muslim holiday. And again, this is not a comprehensive list. This was just my first stab at trying to raise my own awareness of holidays, when they might be observed by you know, by our community. What I didn't put in there, of course, is Ramadan, which occurs over an entire month. But that fasting can have a huge impact on some students in terms of their level of activity, test dates, and so forth. So that's one area where I haven't made any note of when Ramadan is being celebrated or recognized for people. So this is just information right now. You know, you can decide if this is good information.
Okay.
But this is just information. And then, you know, maybe just step one is to just communicate some of these lesser known holidays to some of our staff, so that they can, you know, the administration can decide, as far as I'm concerned, how they would communicate to staff and whether or not they would choose to have any action on that. Or maybe there's a policy that we need to look at and see if we are being inclusive in our language.
Yeah. I can go back to that. I just couldn't see the hands and I heard hands. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
Linda, I see Linda presenting. Linda?
Yeah, so I thought, I don't know if this helps
Yes.
to have it on the screen.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
One of the items, so Laura, thank you so much for getting us started on this. This is like really well laid out and a good, I think a good working document to put specifics to a general idea of inclusiveness and meeting families where they are and being practical about what an impact that has on the like the total ecosystem of the district. So one of the things I just wanted to scroll down really quick that I just would like us to consider. I know under like the Hindu holidays, the key holidays are Diwali and Holi. And I believe that this one here, Mahashivaratri, oh, I'm sorry. I believe that that's more of a regional, I don't think that that's necessarily across all of Hinduism. I think that that might be a regional specific, which may impact the students that are in Wachusett who are Hindu. This might be, I just know with people coming from India, it tends to be in certain regions, go to certain parts of the US. And so that might be the case for Wachusett. But I think this is a really, really good start on how to talk about this in real terms, in something that we can, instead of just sharing ideas, that we can get something specific going. So thank you.
Okay. Okay. I see we're getting close on time. For next steps with this, do we just want to continue to think about it and consider discussing it at hopefully our next meeting and deciding kind of where to go then? Or does anyone have any burning thoughts they'd like to share tonight before we move on?
Jane has a really good idea about looking at our policy 3240 for our next meeting. That's the school ceremonies and observances. So maybe pair that with this discussion. Might be helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay. Linda Longbleel?
Well, if we need to make revisions to our disability policy, I think it might make sense just to get that done and get it done. That would be my thought.
Yes. I was just, yes, that's absolutely on the next agenda. I was just talking about this particular item. And if there's anything else, anyone else wanted to contribute to the calendar discussion before we move to the last two items I wanted to touch base on quickly.
Okay.
But I did make a note of that.
Okay.
I made a note of that policy, so we can add that to the agenda. Policy 3240 would make sense to go hand in hand with this and figure out, have a discussion about them together. And think about what direction we want to go next with that, with policies, or I see their survey questions. So figuring out what to do. I don't think we have time for that discussion tonight, but I think that would be a logical next discussion now that we understand what was in the chart and we have time to think about it. Is there any other thoughts on that? Okay. I'm actually going to skip the next item because we discussed it at our last meeting, and it was something that we said we would take up once the policy is hopefully approved. So the policy, the gender neutrality and existing policies, should be also on the next school committee agenda since the last meeting was canceled. And that should also be added to the agenda. And then once that is hopefully passed in 2 readings, then we will send the memo or, confirm the memo, because then we can make reference to the policy. So, I assume it was still brought forward or will be brought forward to the agenda. Does that make sense? Sorry. I think I'm getting tired too.
So are you
Sorry,
sending
Brendan.
that forward, Malia, or
Well,
is
I
that
was
is that
asking, Brendan was going to do it for
asking?
the previous school committee meeting, which then we didn't
Yeah,
have. So I didn't know if it was
it
just carried forward or we need to make sure
it
it's
would,
included.
it is.
Okay,
It
thank
is,
you.
yeah.
Okay. So it's taken care of. Okay,
Yeah.
great. I'm also going to skip number 7 because I think that's a lengthier discussion. The item number 8, I know we had requested that data. I didn't know this was Brendan's last meeting, so I don't know if we have any data of that sort or where that stands.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just reading the room here, I think to have
Yeah.
that conversation might maybe go to the next one.
That's fine. Is that something that we can have when you are no longer with us?
Well, Jane
Or
and I
at
have talked
least-
about that. So,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That could
So
be
we
on
can
there.
make sure that that data is included in our next meeting and we can talk about it then. Okay. Can I make a request because I'm visual? If there's any way to send the data ahead of time, whatever exists, that would be helpful.
I mean, yeah, I mean, what we would share would be data that's public, you know.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's totally fine. It just, some of us are visual, including myself. So it's
Mhm.
easier to see things ahead of time and be able to, think about it. And then discuss it. Okay. So I'll add that to the next agenda. Under new business, do we have any other new business that we have not discussed this evening? Laura has a hand up.
Yeah, I don't know if this belongs in under our purview or if this is more some other subcommittee, but it seemed like to me these were policies that perhaps are something that we should at least look at for the next time. I'd like to recommend the following policies to at least be reviewed by us, and then decide on where they ought to go for revision as needed. So I'm going to put them in the chat, but I'll also read them out loud.
Okay.
I think I'm putting them in the chat correctly here. It's policy number 3313B, policy relating to education of controversial issues, whatever that means. P 3313.3, policy relating to education, AIDS, and sexually transmitted diseases. That one hasn't been updated since 1994.
Oh,
And
that's
policy,
okay.
policy 3895, policy relating to education, English language learners. Now that one's a newer policy as of 2018, so that one may be fine. But I'd just like for us to look through it, make sure that
Okay.
we're, going at least having some eyes on it, and then we can make a decision on where it ought to go for recommendation or review as needed.
Okay. I made a note of those. Linda
Thank you.
Longaleo.
Just, well, I guess we could look at them, but they might, I'm just wondering off the top of my head if it might make more sense for the Ed subcommittee to look at them. I don't know. I just don't know.
Okay. We can, I don't think we need to look at them in detail unless we decide that they are under our purview, but I think what I heard Laura saying is that she thought it would be useful to consider them and decide if they're under our purview or not. And which, that discussion can be, who knows how long that will take. It will depend on the policy, but I think some may be more than others. So I think that's definitely, I'll make a note of that. Okay. Do we have any other new business to add to the agenda for future meetings?
Yes. So
go ahead.
way back when some students came to us saying that they would like to discuss changing or editing the mascot. And I would like to, maybe that's not something that we get done, obviously, next week, but I would like to bring that back because, first of all, I mean, out of respect for the fact that they asked us, and then we said, I'm sorry, we're very busy with COVID. So we need to bring that back. And for
Linda
lots of other
Longolio?
reasons.
I'm sorry, I just didn't understand exactly what it was that Krista wanted to bring back. I just didn't hear it.
A discussion of the mascot.
The mascot.
Oh, the mascot. Oh.
Yeah.
I will make a note of that. There is some history there, but it's not my place to decide that right now. So I will make a note of that so we can decide again where that should go.
Okay.
It's lengthy, so I won't go into details. There was a whole subcommittee on it a year or two ago. So we'll I'll add it to the agenda for new business to figure out and have a discussion about, whether that's our preview or not. Linda Woodland.
I don't have new business, but I have, I don't want to end the meeting without saying some words. So I don't know if this is the time, if we can do this.
I think that's fine.
Okay. So Brendan, I wanted to thank you for your service in this district, and working with you has been an absolute pleasure. I feel like we're going to be losing a lot with you moving on. Whoever is getting you next is getting a lot. And I wish you would stay.
Yes.
But I also wanted to just say, we know all of the work that you've done on COVID has been in our face, but I just want to recognize all of the additional work that you've done besides that. I think early on, when I started on the committee, I worked with you on the anti-bullying plan update, and that was a fantastic experience and a really great look to see your priorities, how you can take something that is pretty antiquated and just turn it around on its head and use all of these modern principles of restorative justice and empathy and grounding all of the district work in that idea. And I saw it in that work. I saw it also in building the reopening plan and climbing the mountain together, and your spacing of the 4 quarters and having that foresight to look at those different themes based on the cycles that you've talked about with us in this subcommittee. And just, I feel like I've seen so much of your expertise laid out across the district. And I think our students are in a significantly better position now than they would have been with anyone else in this position. And I wanted to thank you sincerely.
Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed.
That
Yes.
means a lot.
I second that.
Thanks.
Triple that.
I'm leaving with just a lot of happiness and pride of the work we've done together. And it's tough to leave. And sometimes when opportunities come up, it's exciting, but we can't do 2 jobs at once, and I really am going to miss working with you all. And I'm really grateful to have the opportunity. We've done a lot of great work together, and that's so important for us to realize, we work together on difficult things. So thank you so much. That's really nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a unique talent to be able to lead discussions of the difficult topics, and you are extraordinarily talented at it. So I know I've appreciated your work, and I think our district has benefited a lot, and I can't imagine. I'm sure we will work with whoever the next person is, and they will be hopefully equally qualified, but you have big shoes to fill. So I will wish you luck.
Thank you.
The next meeting, I don't have my calendar out. It's on my phone, which is on another floor of my house. So I believe it's the 14th. It's whatever that Thursday is. So I don't have that in front of me, but I know we got an invitation to it already. So hopefully we can continue these discussions. And I apologize for not having it available.
It's the 14th. I just checked.
It's the 14th.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And the agenda, I have many notes from today. In the light of time, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will put them in a nice, neat list in the next probably 24 hours or so and send them off to Brendan and Jane. And hopefully it will make sense while it's still fresh in everyone's head. If that's okay with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And you can really just send it to me, honestly, because again, Brenda's not going to be here. So
Okay. I wasn't sure this week, so all right, I will do that. I know that Asima has already said that, asked me if I could share that meeting as well because it is still Ramadan, and this falls right in the middle of her breaking fast and prayers, and so she had asked me if I could share those meetings. So it'll be a busy month for all of us. Is there anything else before we adjourn? I know we're a little after 9. It's been a long night, so I appreciate it very much. I think we did good work. I will entertain a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I will do a roll call vote. Linda Longvalil,
Long yes.
Laura,
Krishnabam, yes. Thanks, Brendan.
Linda Woodland,
Woodland, yes. Thanks, Brendan.
Brett,
Beardmore, yes. Thanks, Brendan.
Krista.
No.
Oh, and I will vote yes, and
Okay,
also
okay,
add
yes.
my thanks, Brendan. And I know if that was only enough to keep him with us a while longer. All right. Thank you all.
Good night. Goodbye.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.